The first game of the Western Conference Finals didn't go down without the most infamous topic in the league, the foul baiting of SGA. It seems like apart from the players, the NBA pundits and experts have had enough of this gameplay that has drawn a lot of criticism throughout the year. But after Edwards' latest antics and the pundits on his side, will the referees change something regarding these phantom fouls, or will the gameplay have to adapt further to it? There is no doubt that the free throw merchant shouts won't calm down anytime soon, and for a good reason as well. During the first game of the Western Conference Finals, we've seen a lot of questionable calls upon SGA, the superstar of OKC and the leading candidate for the MVP. It was more or less the same stuff that we saw against the Nuggets and the favourable call made against Jokic, but this time, Anthony Edwards was having none of it. In the first quarter, while the Wolves were up 10-3, SGA was called for yet another questionable foul, to which Edwards lost his cool and threw the ball towards his rival. This resulted in a technical foul, something that was definitely a soft decision by the referees, but at this point you just have to wonder, where does one draw the line when it comes to SGA's contact? It's one thing to be an intellectual player and to draw contact on purpose, but to literally dive into your rivals and force the fouls out from positions they do not exist in is just extremely unprofessional, and the referees need to take further action on this. This wasn't the only questionable call that the referees brought against SGA. For example, we can see how McDaniels played more or less perfect defense here, putting the superstar of OKC out of balance for the entire play. But at the end, it's clearly seen how Shai is pushing his shoulder towards McDaniels and drawing a contact, something that didn't really affect the outcome, just slightly his balance, which was already questionable during the entire play. During the fourth quarter, McDaniels was fouled out, and it's precisely moments like this that can determine the difference between a win and a loss. Or more precisely, moments that can start an avalanche and just destroy the morale in their rivals. At this particular point of the play, when McDaniels made slight contact with Shai, he was already going to go down, but the contact initiated has facilitated this process. And it's precisely why Doris Burke called the entire play ridiculous and asked the NBA for more responsibility moving forward. A shocking fact is that SGA had 7 free throw attempts in the first quarter and 14 in the entirety of the game, something that didn't go unnoticed by Burke, who went on to say, there is a reason why NBA Twitter calls SGA a free throw merchant. Whether she knew it or not, she literally cooked with this sentence. It's becoming painful to watch, and the facial expressions of SGA are also showing that he knows precisely what he is doing. For starters, you can see how Edwards, Randall and Conley are literally just watching SGA, and he is trying to bait the foul by making awkward facial expressions as if he's being pushed or fouled. At a certain point, something needs to change drastically, because a lot of NBA pundits feel like the behaviour of SGA is changing the narrative and is hurting the game in the long term. One of them is Bill Simmons, as the famous pundit from Ringer went on to write, "I don't care who wins the game, the touch foul calls SGA gets are really awful. They don't resemble anything else that's happening in the playoffs." Another one is Nick Wright. He made a confession about the Thunder, stating that the gameplay of SGA is something that's hurting their narrative as the arguably best team in the West. Addressing this situation in a podcast and then further explaining it more on X, Nick Wright wrote, "As I said this afternoon, OKC is clearly the best team. They should win the title. Yet I find it impossible to root for them. Their identity is super physical. Amazing defense plus an MVP who collapses when you nudge him to get calls and the refs reward it every time. Hate it." The situation has gone on to the extent of Andy Bailey stating that we might have to see national TV broadcasts being forced to stop replaying the calls SGA gets because it would do no good to them. Just send the viewers to the power button and away from the sport. But what we need to add is that the Wolves didn't play good enough basketball in order to take this game in a very close manner. For example, Anthony Edwards took only 13 shots during the entire game, and the superstar is well aware that this must not repeat if they want to have any shot at the championship. It's not just that. In the fourth quarter, when clutch time matters the most, Edwards shot only once, failing to score points, notched 2 turnovers, and played for 6 minutes only. The plus-minus rate was -11 for Edwards, and it's a massive flaw if it continues to go down the way it did in Game 1. The superstar of the Thunder was well aware that a gameplay like this cannot continue further down the drain if they want to be up there and compete for the chip. And when elaborating on this to a greater extent, he went on to say, "I feel great, but I definitely have to shoot more. I only took 13 shots. I probably just need to get off the ball a little more, play without the ball. I think that will be the answer. I mean, they clogged the paint. That's what they do. They don't get much size down there, so they bank on us not making shots, I guess. Because every time I go to the rim, it's like 4 people in the paint." It is a similar pattern that NBA experts noted between the Wolves and Warriors Game 1, where the Wolves were not ready to bring in the heat and the momentum, and that cost them a lot. One of the strongest critics of this gameplay was John Krawczynski from The Athletic, as he went on to write, "Very similar to Game 1 versus Golden State. Wolves were just not ready for the ramp up in intensity that OKC brought in the second half. Always thought Game 2 was more gettable, but they have to flush this in a hurry because the second half was a disaster. And it's precisely this type of failure that made the fans not even compare Edwards and SGA and not put them in the same bracket of elite players. I know that the foul baiting is something that needs to stop sooner rather than later, but on the other hand, the Canadian player has established himself as the firm leader of a very young squad, delivering when it matters the most. On the other hand, Edwards needs to wipe away these allegations with a strong performance like we've seen against the Lakers and the Warriors in the previous rounds. Julius Randle has picked up the pace and is playing at an elite level, so all Edwards needs to do is follow suit and deliver when it matters the most. Of course, someone else has to step up as well. Dante DiVincenzo went 3 for 12 from behind the arc, Nickeil Alexander-Walker was 2 for 9, while Mike Conley was 1 for 5. The only one performing was Julius Randle, who went on to score 28 points on 9 for 13 shooting, amassing 5 threes from 6 attempts in the first half. It's a massive improvement that the Wolves need to implement on themselves first before they can call someone a free throw merchant, even though they have all the right to do so given the questionable calls made in favour of the Canadian superstar. With all this in mind, what do you think about the latest development of events revolving around SGA and the foul baiting situation? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that appears on your screen right now